We are at 7 o'clock. I'll go ahead and get this meeting started. Welcome, everybody, to the first in-person meeting of the Albany Arts Committee. I'm going to do a roll call for everybody who's here. Member Carlton?
Here.
Okay. Member Chen?
Here.
Member Green?
Here.
Member Shaw?
Here.
And would somebody like to read the land acknowledgement for tonight's meeting?
I can.
Okay.
Hold on, I gotta put it on my screen. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Okay, great. So that brings us to agenda item 2, the approval of the minutes. Was everybody able to take a look at the minutes? I realize there's only one person who is actually in attendance at that particular meeting. So you can abstain, but we do need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. And we take a motion and a second to do that. Yeah.
Just a question. Those are the minutes from which specific meeting?
December 12th.
Got it. Okay.
It looks like there's an arrow. It looks like December 12th, 2023, which is the future. I'll correct that.
In the meetings, I mean, in the agenda, it says 2022.
Yeah, I just see that actually on the agenda item it says 2023.
Oh.
I'll correct that.
I move to approve it.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Member Carlton? Either yes, no, or abstain.
To what?
To the approval of the minutes.
I approve.
Okay. Member Chen?
I also approve.
Member Green?
Approve.
Member Shaw?
Approve.
Okay. All right, this takes us to public comment. For those who are attending the meeting, do we have any comments from the public? No? I'm seeing nobody in our virtual audience and nobody here, so no public comments. So it brings us to announcements. So tonight for announcements, I figured what we would do is just do some introductions. It will go around. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Jeremy Allen. I'm the media manager for the City of Albany. I've been here since 2000 when I started running youth programs and then moved into taking over the TV station. The very first iteration of the TV station was 2 like CRT televisions and a back office over here with a character generator. And from that point, we've built it out to support all of the media activities for the City of Albany, including a TV channel, audio and video production. We're instrumental in starting the Albany Film Fest, which has been going for 10 years here in Albany, as well as a variety of other kind of media duties, social media, website, and graphic design, a variety of different things. Basically, have kind of become a jack of all trades from City of Albany media production. And it's been fun. I'm glad to be here. And usually I'm the person who's behind the cameras, so this is my first time in person with our hybrid meeting setup that we developed to accommodate all of the public meetings after the pandemic. So fortunately the technology has been working okay, and yeah, happy to be here. So maybe we'll start with Brad.
Thank you. Brad Carlton.
And please speak closer to the microphone.
And turn it on. Brad Carlton, 17-year Albany resident, recently retired from 30 years as a children's educational video game designer. And now I do watercolors, which are at Ocean View Brew Works, by the way. And I have a degree in graphic design and a minor in fine arts, very minor, actually. And really, that's about all I have. I'm kind of excited to see what goes on here.
Okay. Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a grad student at UC Berkeley, and so I've lived in Albany for only 4 years, but I've really enjoyed the city since I moved here, especially during the pandemic where you couldn't go anywhere except for walk around the town. So that's kind of my main motivation for being here. I really like also watercolor and do some graphic design just for fun or for when people ask me to design things. And that's kind of my arts background.
I'm Deirdre Green, and I'm a very long time Albany resident. And I have 3 kids who went through the schools and was involved in the schools and with a couple parcel taxes and stuff. And I was on the Economic Development Committee the last 2 years where I met Harsh on a subcommittee, and so that's how I got here. And professionally, I was in publishing for a long time, and about 5 years ago, totally changed, and now I manage 2 chefs, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Hello, my name is Harsh. Let's see, so I've lived in Albany for 2 years, moved here with my wife. We now have a 4-month-old, which is, wow, a lot of work, kind of adjusting to this new life. And yes, I was on the Arts Committee last year. I joined in May of last year, so a bit later into the 2-year term, but was enough to give me an appreciation for sort of how the committee operates and the impact that we can have, but also the speed at which things move, which can sometimes be a little bit slower than we might want. But yeah, excited to be here and to be reappointed for another term. I think art is what makes life worth living, and excited to help get more of it into Albany. Professionally, I work for a company named Canva, whose mission it is to empower the world to design. Yes, I'm a little jet lagged. I was in Sydney last week with my team, but yeah, so if I'm slightly spacey, just want to mention that. So ask for patience there. Yeah.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Arts Committee. This is a good group, a lot of varied experience. Does anybody have any additional announcements about upcoming arts-related activities, things here in Albany that you would like to share with the committee?
I don't.
I should mention that on May 11th, for those of you who are interested, Albany Film Fest is having a community meeting at the community center, looking towards finding like-minded people who are interested in participating in the Film Fest organization. There's a variety of different roles as they've separated from the city to form their own nonprofit. We're helping make that transition from a city program to a self-sustaining nonprofit organization for Film Fest. So if anybody's interested in film or knows anybody who is, there's a community meeting, I think at 7 p.m. at the community center. Let me know if you want any more information. All right, there are no presentations tonight, so it takes us to our discussion and possible actions on matters related to these next items. The first one is going to be, I should preface it by saying this is going to be a relatively short meeting tonight. There's a variety of things we need to talk about that are timely. But, since the committee hasn't been fully appointed, we wanted just to, take a chance, bring everybody here, do some introductions and get started on the stuff that is time sensitive. Joy will be making a presentation about the gallery, and we'll talk a little bit about the Arts Master Plan, but more getting ready for the real work that's going to happen later, hopefully when we have a full appointment to the committee. So, but the very first thing that will be happening is we need to elect a chair and a vice chair, and that starts with nominations of the chair, nominations from the committee. We can have a discussion. We'll talk about who might want to be the chair, who doesn't want to be the chair, and that will go take some public comment, if there's any public comment, and then from there, we'll take a motion in a second, and then vote on the chair. Then the chair would take over and run that same process for a vice chair. Typically, the vice chair is kind of in a standby capacity to help out. There's not a lot of responsibilities. The chair will work with the staff liaison to put the agendas together and communicate and run the meetings going forward. So with that, does anybody have any strong feelings? Would we like to go around and does anybody want to be the chair? Does anybody not want to be the chair?
I strongly do not want to be the chair, but I'd be happy to be the vice chair if anybody wants to take that on.
I have some experience chairing committees, so I would be happy to handle some of the logistics works and if nobody else steps up. But I know in the fall I'm going to be abroad for a few months, so then that means that either a vice chair or someone would have to step up. But yeah, that is kind of, I guess, if my skill sets from prior for this.
Good.
I'd rather not.
Okay.
Yeah, an interesting role, but I am not interested in being the chair, but I am happy to be vice chair
Okay.
as well. So
Yeah.
Oh, man, we're going to have to duke it out, huh?
secondary.
So with that, we should move to public comment, but I don't see anybody here. Nobody in our virtual audience. So we can take a motion for the chair. It sounds like we have one standout candidate, if somebody would like to make a motion.
I would like to motion Emily as chair.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're ready for, let me just document that here. Okay, so Carlton, motion. And then, okay, so with that, let's take a roll call vote. So Member Carlton?
Sorry about what?
For, on the motion to appoint Member Chen as chair.
I approve.
Yeah, so it could be an aye, no, yes, yeah,
Yes.
okay. And then Member Chen?
Aye.
Okay. Member Green?
Yes.
All right. Member Shaw?
Yes.
All right. So congratulations, Emily. So for this meeting, we can either have you and Deirdre swap seats so that you can be in the chair position, or we can continue this meeting as it is right now.
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
Okay. All right. So I will pass the meeting on to you for the remainder, and you can do the vice chair.
Okay. Okay, so I guess now we need to have a motion, or we can talk about who wants to, wants to be the vice chair. So do you two want to maybe say something more or less on that?
Sure. Let's see. About being vice chair. Yeah. I don't know if I have a lot to add here about being vice chair. So I think just for context on the chair piece, which is that I just things are a bit busy at home, and I appreciate that you have stepped up to be chair. On vice chair, happy to play a backup role. I was on the committee last year, so a little bit familiar with just how agendas are run, though I might occasionally need help from Jeremy, and also I have contacts with people who were on the committee last year, so happy to help facilitate conversations. To be clear, I would help do these things anyways, even if I'm not vice chair. So yeah, I don't have a real pitch, but yeah, happy to play the role.
Okay, here's my pitch. Honestly, I'm so super new to this whole thing, and I'm happy to step into the role. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but I'd be happy to be the third vice chair. If that works for people, that's fine with me, honestly. If you're ready to do it, you sound like you have some experience with it, which I don't. So, well, that's
700 times.
7 more than me.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, what do we do? Put it up to a vote or?
Well, what we're going to do here is go to public comment, see if anybody from the public has anything to say, but since nobody else has joined the meeting and I don't see any public here that wants to comment, then we'd accept a motion for a vice chair from somebody. And if we have multiple motions, multiple nominations for vice chair, then the thumb wrestling would ensue. But if there's only one nomination, then we would vote on that one nomination.
All right, I will motion to nominate Harsh because you have experience with the committee in the past, and I think you would do a great job leading the meetings when I'm not around.
I'm going to second that motion. That motion?
Okay.
E-motion, whatever.
Are there any other nominations? All right, then we can take a vote on Member Shaw as vice chair. Member Carlton.
Yes.
Okay. Member Chen.
Aye.
Member Green.
Yes.
Member Shaw.
Yes.
All right, so congratulations, Chair and Vice Chair. It is official. All right, so take it away, Member Chen.
Okay.
I can go ahead and step in, right now. The next part is the Community Center Foyer Gallery, and Joy White will be giving us a presentation on the community gallery and kind of what role she plays in helping the committee. Well, I'll pass it over to Joy. One of the things that we will be looking at to do over these next 2 meetings is looking for a gallery manager or 2 gallery managers, which are essentially a subcommittee that can do the legwork to do the outreach to the artists. So Joy will talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to bring up her slide deck in just a second. And then, Run, could you please dim the lights in here for us so that we can? It's really hard for me to see. Yeah. All right, so take it away, Joy. Thank you.
As Jeremy said, my name is Joy White. I'm the recreation supervisor at the community center. And thank you all for having me here today. So the Albany Community Center for your art gallery. So about the gallery. The Albany Community Center Art Gallery is supported by the City of Albany and managed by the Albany Arts Committee. The Albany Arts Committee sponsors 4 to 5 art shows per year, and the exhibit runs for approximately 3 months. The gallery has played host to wonderful and talented artists from Albany and our neighboring cities. The Art Committee, a member from the Art Committee will act as the gallery manager. The Art Committee will discuss public art master plan programs and the formation of subcommittees on the next agenda item. Once the gallery manager has been selected by the full committee, the gallery manager will follow up with the applicants who have been moved forward in the process by the committee, schedule a visit with the artist to view their work and discuss the exhibit program, report back to the committee on the outcome of the artist's studio visit, coordinate the installation, exhibit opening reception, and tear down of the exhibit with the artist. To be considered for the show, artists must fill out the art gallery exhibit application and submit the application with the following documents: a cover letter with artist statement, a resume that includes education, background, past exhibits, and any awards received, 5 printed images of the artwork to be exhibited labeled from 1 to 5 with name and phone number on the back, a work list that clearly identifies each photograph with title of work, year, medium, size, and price, a stamped self-addressed envelope for return of the printed images. If self-addressed stamp envelope is not included with the application, the printed images will not be returned. This can also be done digitally, though, by the way. It can be emailed to us and things of that sort. So applications can be submitted to the attention of the Arts Committee at the Albany Community Center or by emailing all materials to myself at jwhite@albanyca.org. So there's currently 2 applicants, so the Albany Arts Committee will vote to approve, deny the 2 current applicants to move forward in the process.
Actually, can I just jump in? We did realize there was a third that was added to the agenda packet tonight, one that I had misfiled since I'm relatively new to the committee. So we added that to the agenda. So there is a third artist that's not included in Joy's presentation tonight. But it is part of the agenda. If you can pull up the agenda. I also have all the information here, and I can bring it up on screen later. Sorry.
No, good. So I have, the first one is Ken Gold, and his titles is Primates I Have Known. And the second is Jonathan Taylor, title Calm, Floral, and Still Lives. And then these are different places where you can find the information. So for the master plan or for the art gallery, it's all on our website. Does anyone have any questions?
So we're not voting on this right now? We're not voting on this right now.
So tonight, what will need to happen at tonight's meeting is for the committee to look at these applications and determine. Actually, let me step back for a second. There are 2 more shows for the remainder of this year, correct? There's one that runs from July through September, and then one from October through December. Typically, in past years, the format was that applications were submitted over the course of the year, and then in September, the Arts Committee would get together, go through all of the applications, and then set a schedule for the following year. So basically do all of the planning for a series of shows starting the next year after whatever happens in September. The pandemic has changed some of that over these last few years, and we're kind of getting back to what could be considered a normal flow of operations. So right now we have 3 applicants. There's 2 that Joy talked about. There's a third that's in your agenda, and I have all of the documentation here that I can share and put up on the screen. So essentially what the committee will be deciding tonight is, yes to 1, yes to 2, yes to all 3, and what will also need to happen tonight is we'll need to create a subcommittee, which would be no more than 3 members who will do the gallery manager work between now and the next meeting to contact the artists, verify their studios, verify their artwork, and then report back to the full committee at the June meeting so that we can move forward with the next artist who would be featured at the gallery. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm still new to this. Joy probably has the most experience so far working kind of in the logistics of
So yeah, that's all correct. And then once there is one nominated and the schedule is up, then we'll just work to get one artist down, one artist up, and then having their exhibit show
So Joy would be the point of contact at the community center, kind of managing the logistics of the artist up and down. The committee will do the legwork to meet with the artists, discuss timeframes, discuss the logistics of, doing a show, and then bring that back to the committee and say, yeah, we're good to go, essentially. And both Joy and I would be available over this next month or so to help you figure out what your role is as a gallery manager. And also, Emily, you essentially stepped in as the gallery manager at the last show when you showed up, and introduced the artists, I believe. I assume that you did go.
I thought you meant that I, as being chair, am now also.
No. Yeah.
Now all of the items.
Yeah, everything falls to Emily now. So that will be one thing that we need to do tonight, is to create a subcommittee for that particular role, so that we can move forward with the next show and then the subsequent show. Since there are 3 artists, really it will be a discussion right now for you to look at their work, talk about their work together, whether or not all of these 3 should be considered. The third one, whichever that one is, could be put back into the pool and then look at for our 2024 schedule. So essentially, to be looking at 2 for the remainder of this year, and then the third could, if wanted to continue, when we come back in September, hopefully with more applicants for 2024, that person could be part of that lot of artists. Are there any questions?
Yeah, do you do any dual shows, multiple artists?
I don't think that's happened in the past that I'm aware of.
So no, not that I'm aware of either. It has not happened necessarily in the past. It's just a matter of kind of just how it shows in the community center. Have you ever been to the gallery up there and seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it just all depends on splitting the walls, if that were to be something you guys came up with, but.
Right.
I don't think it would be impossible to do, but there's a certain amount of marketing that goes along too. I believe there's a postcard that's created, and then figuring out, then you'd probably want to consider a theme for the show and whether or not the 2 artists, work in concert together for a show. I'm not sure. Perhaps there is a theme or a unifying reason why you'd want to feature 2 together.
Sorry, are the artists usually selling their pieces?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a requirement, or is that
I don't think so.
up to them?
I think it's up to them. I know most of that I've seen, they do have a price tag and a list for them to be contacted if they wanted to be sold.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just turn with a note from something that I remember from last year. Was one of the challenges we ran into sometimes was sometimes there weren't enough artists actually applying, and something we kind of discussed on the committee was, hey, is this sort of an issue on our side with not doing enough outreach? Are we going to the right channels and the right places? So, and the only reason I'm saying that is, there were cases where we had to extend the deadline for the application for our artists. So I think if we wanted to consider doing 2 artists who were interested in presenting, could end up in a situation where we may not have enough artists for the remainder of the year as well. Not saying that it's something that we shouldn't do, because we might be more successful at outreach this year, but just a consideration from last year.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things we could do is I could bring their work up onto the screen. We can talk, or the committee can discuss each one of the artists, and then let's bring up.
So can I ask a favor? It's
Yeah.
actually much easier to see with the lights dimmer.
Oh yeah. So Brian, could we please turn the lights back to where they're?
Thanks.
All right, so let's go in order of, so we'll start with Ken Gold, primates I have known. This is the application. Did everybody get a chance to look at the application? Okay.
I'm sorry, I did not.
So I'll just I'll let you catch up on that. Let's just move to the bio is here. I can expand it a little bit. All right, this might take a second to render. Let's see. All right. All right, so if you want to take a minute, let me know if there's anything else. We can bring up his site, Ken Goldart. This is his CV. Series of exhibitions, group exhibitions, awards. And here is the works that he's looking to share. And I don't.
Is there a theme for this particular show, or
The
we just
title is
kinda-
Primates I Have Known. So,
Okay.
and sorry about the projection rendering. These appear to be, I didn't look at the medium, but the oil. And that's what it was included in the submission. If you want, I could bring up the artist's website if that's useful. But maybe what we'll do is we'll just do kind of an overview here. The next one is, this is Jonathan Taylor. I'll just kind of go through here. This is Calm, Floral, and Still Lives. There's the introduction letter. I'll let you guys catch up on that. Here's his resume. Exhibitions. Looks like a lot of municipalities. And here are the pieces. And let me- One. Okay, and then the third artist is Liching Akurso. Title of the exhibit is Home Again. This is one that we just added this afternoon. This was submitted back in February. It's a solo exhibition for your gallery. Statement. Oh, sorry. Get a little bit larger so you can. Okay. That's one. Okay. So that I'll just go ahead and leave this up, but those are the three artists who have submitted their applications. I think they all meet the criteria, the typical criteria for artists who have exhibited before. So for now, we would give it to the committee to discuss. Essentially, the committee will vote to continue for each one. whether to be included and how. So that would be the topic of the discussion. Is there a particular reason why you only want to use, to feature one artist, all three artists, two of the artists, and then some discussion for each one of them. So I'll just hand it over to the committee to have that discussion here. I don't know that Joy, you necessarily need to stay for any other information unless the committee has other questions for Joy about the program or any of those kind of the logistics.
Just want to say thank you for putting the presentation together.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, Joy.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. And you don't have to stay if you.
Personally, I'd like a little more time to look these over. They're all extremely talented and have a lot of credentials and a lot of exhibits and a lot to look at. And I don't know, I don't see why we couldn't show all three of them, but they probably have a lot of artwork, so they could probably fill the whole foyer. So yeah, I would just like to take a little more time.
Okay.
Just a question, Jeremy. Do we have to decide tonight about
Could potentially work for that show. You don't have to decide which one. That could be done in June, but you do need to advance them so that the committee, gallery subcommittee can meet with them and discuss timeframes and, who's available and what those kind of parameters are.
Well, I mean, then maybe we just advance them all, right? Like, so that we have time, because then what do we need to do in the next month?
Well, what you'll need to do tonight is create a subcommittee of not more than 3 members of the Arts Committee to be, essentially, there's one gallery manager, but sometimes it's better to have 2 people to split the workload. The gallery manager, from what Joy described, will be the person who visits the artist, does the email correspondence, perhaps, and goes and visits their studio, looks at the body of work, and then works with Joy to determine the dates for when a show would be installed. So at the next meeting, I believe, if I understand this correctly, that's when the committee could select which artist would be the next one to start the show in July. I don't think it's too late by that time, but we may need to have there might need to be a special meeting in between in order to make that one specific decision if you don't decide which one would be the next artist for the next show. I think there's enough time to do that from because the Arts Committee meets the second Monday. I think the show comes down in July. I'll have to look at the calendar again to make sure that I have the time right. So I think it would be possible to extend that decision to the next meeting, so long as you pick your gallery manager or the gallery committee or subcommittee, and then you can start working. And I can work with whoever those people are to kind of move the ball forward in between now and the next committee meeting.
Sorry, when is the next committee meeting?
It's the second Monday of every month except for August. So
Do you know what
looking
that
at
date is?
yeah, let me bring it up
Sorry.
here.
Be out of town.
Yes, so we would be looking at June 12th.
Okay. I'm inclined to go with Deirdre's recommendation, but if I had to make a hard line, I would go with this last artist. That would be my first pick.
Yeah, I think that all 3 of them are good choices for the gallery, and that we can move them all forward. I just saw at a glance that this one, they said in their cover letter that they mentioned maybe for the September showing, and I just want to make sure that if that's the earliest they would be able to have a showing, or yeah, I'm not sure what the cycle of the,
Yeah, so that would be a discussion that the gallery manager subcommittee would be able to kind of discuss with the artist and see if that's feasible. What time frame would work for the artist, and then that can just all be brought back to the committee as an announcement from the subcommittee in June.
I think that sounds reasonable to me to proceed with all three. Is there any reason why choosing someone now is just helpful? Like you mentioned potentially having to do a special committee.
No, not necessarily, because I think you're still going to have to reach out. I mean, it would only be, I think these are all strong candidates, and I don't see a reason why. There's only 2 more showings for the rest of this year, and I think whoever's the third one, likely would be put back in for 2024 as an option. As the Arts Committee goes to collect more applications, they would just be part of that mix and decided upon, at the next one. So, no, I don't think that there's any particular reason why you would only need to pick 2, since you have 3 strong candidates. And you don't need to pick which one is going to happen at which time, because that would be work that can be discussed informally with the subcommittee and then discussed with the artists to see what timeframes work.
Do we motion on that?
Yeah, so we'd accept a motion for what the committee has just discussed. We would need to go to public comment first. If there's anybody in the public who is interested in having their 3 minutes. If you're done with the questions, I'll go ahead and open up for public comment to see if anybody would like to say. I don't see anybody here in the audience, and nobody in the virtual audience has raised their hand. So we'll give it, another few seconds here. And I don't see anybody raising their hand. So let's bring it back to the committee so we can take a motion for what you'd like to do.
Okay, I move that we continue with all 3 and form a subcommittee to act as a gallery manager.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Member Carlton? For your vote. What? Oh. Yeah.
Didn't I just do that?
That was the second. So now I call a vote of all the members.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I vote what she said.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Member Chen?
I,
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Shaw?
Yes.
Okay. So the next part of this, we can either look at this right now under Foyer Gallery, or as we look at the public art master plan programs. Those are places where we can look at the subcommittees. Since we're here right now, maybe it makes most sense if you would like to create a subcommittee and decide now who should be that gallery manager, who would like to be the gallery manager, who has time to do that work over the next month or so. One of the things that you also want to consider is, as we talk about the public art master plan programs, there will be more subcommittees that are created probably at the next meeting as we go more in depth about what the committee will be working on in this next 2-year cycle with the work plan. So this is one that was just probably the most timely because the work needs to be done now, between now and June to interface with the artists. So so is there anybody who would like to volunteer? Is there anybody who has a strong preference one way or the other?
I just had a question, Jeremy. Would it make sense to, I know one other thing sounds like we're going to do in this meeting is kind of cover the public arts master plan. And I think you'd asked me to maybe just kind of go through some of the items that we'd worked on last year. And I think in reviewing those, we might get an opportunity to kind of see, or the entire committee would get an opportunity to see what else sort of, what the other initiatives are.
So maybe we want to look at that first before people make decisions?
That would be potentially my vote, or unless someone feels like, hey, straight out of the gate, I know the gallery manager is the role that I want to play.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think we have consensus on that, yeah?
I would like to take that role.
Okay, good, all right. So why don't we'll come back to this let's move forward to 6.3, and then we can deal with the subcommittees, including the gallery manager at the same time. So here on 6.3, I'll go ahead and bring up the, get my, let me bring this up. Where did I have that? Did I have it? Oh, I had it in here. So so as I was, Harsh has been on the committee much longer than I have. I still have yet to go through and read the entire park, the master plan, so that I can help answer any questions. But essentially, this is the document that the city created with the Arts Committee. I think this was several years ago. Yeah, 2010, and then there have been a few revisions along the way. But I asked Harsh, since he was involved in a lot of the decision making for last season's art committee, working through a number of things on the work plan, to talk a little bit about what some of the projects that the committee was involved in, what was being done last year, and kind of lead us into a more robust discussion that we'll do at our next meeting. I think Isabel will be here and be able to talk a little bit more, some more specific answers to any potential questions, and then talk about the type of work that needs to be done by the committee going forward. So let me just pass it over to you, Harsh, and you can kind of go through, give everybody an overview of what you've been doing to date, and I'll answer any questions as best I can.
Yeah, so the Public Arts Master Plan is actually quite long, as maybe some of you have seen. And instead, last year, towards the end of the year, we prepared an update for City Council, which is only take a look, it's actually just a few pages. And I think that's actually maybe the thing that might be worth reviewing. Jeremy, do you have access to that if you're able to
I do.
check that?
Is that in City Council meeting from a particular time? Or do you?
It's what I emailed over to you.
Oh, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me pull that up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and talk. I'll just go ahead and bring it up.
Yeah, and I think basically I'm happy to kind of talk through some of the work plan items from 2021 to the 2023 work plan. And even though we say 2023, it actually sort of ends about now. I think it goes through June. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why we're going to be working on a new work plan that I think probably kicks off for July of 2023 up to June of 2025. So as Jeremy pulls that up, and what you'll see is it's just a list of projects and updates on sort of where they stood at the end of last year. I'll start with the sculpture loan program, which is a program where we've had artists basically loan us a sculpture, I think for a period of about 2 years. And we did end up having a sculpture go up at Masonic and Washington by Jeff Downing, who's an artist based in Marin. It's called Bard Spiral. And I believe the plan was to release another call for applications for the remaining site, which is at Masonic and Solano. There was some discussion on the committee last year about I'm trying to remember the amount that we would pay the artists for that loan, but potentially increasing that amount because, one thing that we sort of have to decide on as a committee is, as we sort of set the budget for this next work plan cycle is how much we want to spend on each sort of individual work item and whether the amounts that we are setting aside are reasonable and just and fair. And in the case of this sculpture loan program, what we ended up deciding is just the amount of cost it takes to transfer a sculpture and get that over here to Albany. I think it might have been $2,000. Do you happen to know, Jeremy?
No, I don't.
Okay, yeah, and if there ends up being a sculpture subcommittee, they can kind of look at the particulars of that and decide, how much we might want to set aside for that. One thing that did take a a bit of a long time. Last time, I think, was the actual pouring of the concrete on the site, and I think it might have taken like a year or year and a half, and that was after a selection of an artist had been made, I think, to my knowledge. And so I think probably one thing I'll probably speak to sort of throughout is just whatever urgency we can bring to the situation is great. Because this is the entire work plan it's really up to us, and we have to interface with the city and the artists, but we can kind of be that driving force to hold things along to the best effort that we can. But taking that long can actually be a bit of inhibitive to a given artist, because maybe they want to loan it somewhere else, and they don't want to hang on to the piece for that long. All right, so next up is community projects. So if we go down.
Yeah. Sorry, Harsh, can I ask a question? So are you getting these pieces on loan because it's cheaper than getting them permanent?
I'm trying to recall why it was set up as a loan program versus an outright purchase program, and I don't remember why. I don't even know if I know why. Do you happen to know
Say that again?
why we ended up doing a sculpture loan program versus?
I don't, but when Keenan is involved in the sculpture loan program, and what we'll probably do is bring him back to talk to the committee about the specifics of that program at a future meeting.
Okay. And are these pieces already produced, or?
They are already produced.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
At least the ones I think, the one that was brought on and installed at Masonic and Washington was already produced.
okay. Cool.
And by the way, please feel free to ask questions along the way. Great. Okay, so that's a sculpture loan program, and if we go down to the next item, community projects, that's one that is sort of near and dear to my heart, which is a murals program. So there was a murals subcommittee that was established last year. Deirdre was on the Economic Development Committee, where there was basically a subcommittee that was formed between the Arts Committee and the EDC, and together we were working on bringing more murals into Albany, and we've actually made pretty good progress there. We've identified 4 sites, 3, actually all 4 are along Solano. One is the wall that's next to Raven and Rose. Another one that is owned by Albany USD, that is that at Cornell?
Yeah, I think it's at Cornell. The one after Cornell.
Talbot?
And Marin?
Yeah, no, what's this, the street crossing Solano?
I should know that. Evelyn Stanage?
Yeah.
It's right there next to the Albany, we're testing Albany geography test. That one intended to be,
Cornell.
but anyways, it's the Albany USD building that is there. There's also Renee's place, which is further up, I think, at Santa Fe and Solano, and Renee, who owns the building, is open to a mural there, and then the final spot
Bart.
is Bart. So putting some art on the Bart pillars, which if we were to do, we would be the first city to have done that, and Bart is supportive of that. And so with all 4 of these owners have provided, are supportive of us pursuing this, and Deirdre and I have been working on this since last year. And with at least 3 of the 4 owners, we do have some thoughts around what the themes should be for the murals as well. So happy to present on that at the next Arts Committee meeting as well. And we also had a conversation with the city a few weeks ago with Isabel and Jeremy about just what the process should look like for the murals. And I'll actually sort of pause here because want to talk about all the other items on the agenda. But murals, since it's something that I've been working closely on, is something I can talk about for a very long time.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of time to talk about that at a subsequent meeting when we go into these items with way more detail, especially after the subcommittees are created.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm all for murals everywhere, and I'm glad to hear about all that. But I was also thinking about and I love the thought of putting stuff on those bark pillars. Those are just so gross and ugly. What about moving up San Pablo? Because I don't know about you, but that is the ugliest stretch of street I've been on in a long time.
We actually did reach out to some business owners, and so far, nobody's interested. So,
Hotsy totsy. They would put something up.
yeah, maybe. We didn't go that far down, actually.
Yeah, I think it is something that we could explore. And of course, like, as we start to figure out particularly this project, it's a matter of kind of how much funding do we have to support it, because we may just end up having enough for, let's say, 4 murals, 3 or 4, but and then how much capacity do we have to kind of run conversations between the business owners and run that RFP process for each individual site, which is also what would happen as well. Okay, so next up, I think, is the Public Arts Project in support of Black Lives and social justice. So actually, you were also
I was.
on the selection panel for this on the EDC. So I don't know if you want to provide an update or.
Well, I mean, I thought that the committee had voted on it, actually.
We did. So this
Yeah.
is from, I think, these are notes from October.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, wait a sec. So, yeah, so someone was selected, and, but I don't know what the status is of her,
I'll have to find out. Is that
Susan.
Was
Moss.
Susan Moffett? Yeah, she's looking to. She has the next stage is doing a public display of the art at the community center, so the public will be able to. It's information gathering for public comment on the proposed artwork, and I think that she is working with staff right now to solidify the dates. I think she's going to be out of town traveling for, unless I heard, traveling for a period of time and trying to coordinate when that would happen.
okay.
Yeah, that proposal from the artist Susan Moffett, who I understand is an Albany local artist, is a very ambitious project, one that I was very excited about
Yeah.
when we reviewed it on the Arts Committee last year. So excited to see it come to life as well. All right, the Heron sculpture. That isn't something that we actively pursued on the committee or prioritized. So that might be something where Isabel can hopefully fill in the gaps. And
I think actually at our meeting, she said that she wasn't sure when it would come up, like when the time would be that it would need rehabilitation.
It's relatively soon, probably within the next year. I think that's going to be
Oh,
something that the
okay,
committee
okay.
will be looking at, because as the committee discusses the funding available to do all of these different projects, part of this discussion is, okay, for installations that have been here for 10 or 15 years, should the committee recommend to spend money to rehabilitate older works, or is it time to invest in a new work? That'll be part of the committee's purview. For example, the Heron sculpture, which has been there since, I think, '99, it's been rehabilitated by, I think, by the artist or by the city at least one time, maybe twice. You know, there's rust to deal with. Is it still safe? You know, how much is it going to cost to either power wash, paint, coat with whatever protective coating is necessary? Those are kind of the conversations that will have to happen. And if that costs $15,000 or $25,000, would you want to put that into rehabilitating older works because they're part of the fabric of Albany, or is it time to look towards a new installation, you know, for the next generation of people, you know, coming to these spaces?
Can the decision be done piece by piece?
Yeah, and I think that will have to do, so tonight's meeting is kind of an overview to kind of get the juices flowing as you start thinking about what's going to be coming up. Because at the next meeting and hopefully at the next meeting or the July meeting, we'll be deciding the work plan for this session of the Arts Committee and where the work is going to be and what are the decision that will be need to be made and how to look at, kind of the broadest scope of what the committee will be focusing on to help you prioritize where the money will be spent. So if there's $200,000 in an arts committee fund, how much is for murals, how much is for rehabilitating artwork, how much is for commissioning new artwork, those sort of decisions.
All right. Art pillars, so talked a little bit about that as part of the murals program.
Have you guys talked about how the artwork is decided? Like, maybe going into school groups, community centers or something and get kids and seniors involved. And it doesn't have to be, as long as it's splashy and fun, it doesn't have to be perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, although I would say all 4 of those site owners, or whatever you want to call them, expressed a desire, that it be a professional artist. So I think Albany USD thought maybe there could be a way to bring community in to paint it, was my feeling.
Yeah, I think we proposed that to them as a means of getting,
getting-
maybe there's a way we can work with the artists to say, hey, can we kind of carve out this part of the mural? You could, perhaps it's your concept or idea, but maybe some of the kids could either hear directly from the artist or even be able to paint, a section of it. But this is all hypothetical, given that all we have right now is a potential theme and agreement with the site owner about a potential mural.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I don't disagree with those people either, to be honest. It's like, you want to be professional,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and some of them were
Yes.
felt strongly about that as well.
Yeah.
And I get it. If that was my wall.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. Utility boxes. Yeah, that is something that we did not actively pursue last year. There might have been some reason for that, but I can't remember.
So I did on the.
Oh, you did?
On
Okay,
the EDC.
great.
And it was, first of all, it turns out, from what I can remember, that of the utility boxes in our town, not very many of them would even be available for art. There are all these rules on who owns it, what you can do with it. And however few there are, it was actually really hard for the city to give me any kind of answer on where those were. So
Right outside the building.
it might not be usable, though. That's the thing. It's very confusing. And so I think then what happened in the EDC is because the murals got some traction, the utility box thing,
Just went away.
I mean, it seemed like such an easy thing, but logistically, in terms of trying to untangle who owns the boxes, it's actually much harder. And for whatever reason, because I was working on both, I was like, well, the murals, at least there's a clear owner and we can go talk to them and,
Right.
work with them.
Because the utility boxes, I assume, the city owns part of it, and then whoever
Yeah, like
uses
the
it.
public, whatever it is, PG&E, I don't know. who
Could
it
be
is.
PG&E, Comcast.
Yeah.
There's a variety, Sonic, there's a variety of third-party entities here in the city.
Yeah, and anytime you get those names involved, it's just stalled.
Yeah, I mean, even like in El Cerrito, which has a really good one, I think maybe they have only, I don't know, 10 that are available for art.
I think I emailed Jeremy about this. There were 2.
Yeah, yeah,
They found 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, so it's almost impossible. Seems like such a great idea. but,
It does, but
and an inexpensive way, relatively inexpensive way to get good art, but whatever.
personally, I'd rather see the pillars and the murals and
Yeah.
all that,
Yeah.
honestly.
All right, public art installations. So, of course, talk a little bit about like the sculpture loan program, but I don't think this is something that we explored on the committee as of last year. Okay, seasonal haiku program. Have all of you seen that sort of pop up around Albany?
No, I have no idea what this is.
Okay.
I don't. Sorry.
It's one of the things that actually inspired me to join the arts committee. It was led by Peter Goodman. In the last cycle, Peter was on the committee for I think something like 15 years. Peter, if you're listening, thank you for the seasonal haiku program. But yeah, basically it involved choosing basically dozens of haiku poems to actually go up around the city around sort of the fall time frame for about a 3-week period. And you'd get submissions from people of all ages. So you'd get kids who go to the Albany schools who'd be submitting it. And they would, Peter and I helped out last year to put some of them up as well, putting them up along Solano, along the Greenway, putting them on the big bellies, which is the trash cans around the sides where they have sort of display areas. But yeah, that is was an effort that was led by Peter, which basically involved setting up an application form, collecting all the haikus, selecting them, and then getting them actually printed as well, and then actually installing them.
Wait, so does that mean Peter's gone and he won't be doing it?
Peter is.
He's not on the committee, yeah.
What? I just always associated it with him.
It's from the city, from the Arts Committee, so it could be something that is continued. We would have to look at other printing. It was great because he has his own publishing company
Right.
and has direct connections with printers for
Right.
some very affordable printing. So we would have to look at, the cost of doing that and who would want to manage that. Because it was a popular program, it was fall into haiku when it started, and then also we came up with spring into haiku so that it could be twice a year. And those signs, were, spread out all around town. It was, quite a lovely, experience, a lot of community involvement.
Sorry, where were they installed? I'm sorry, I don't think I saw any.
Solano, the Greenway.
Were they
literally
on
dozens of
poles
sites.
or?
On what, sorry?
Were they on poles or where
They were on small poles sort of planted into the ground as well as on the big belly trash cans on the sides where they have display.
Oh, okay.
It was also supported by the Albany Community Foundation, so one of the things would be, for the Arts Committee to work directly with one of their representatives and see if there's, any additional funding through the Community Foundation to support that.
Okay, I was thinking, it's like the fact that I didn't really see them. Is there a way to make them a little more dramatic or something?
They were
Bigger?
kind of like, like campaign signs, that sort of size.
Oh, that's probably why I didn't
Yeah,
see them.
and usually with metal prongs, it would stick into the ground. I think that they're kind
They would normally face, like, if you're walking up or down Solano, they would face you. So,
Okay.
so like, they
Okay.
face the viewer like that.
Are these things that could be made open to the public so people could like put them in their yards?
I think that, I'm not certain of the installation. We have a map on the city site that showed where they were. So that was another part of what we would do, is we would create this Google map representation, go to the city site, and you could see where yours was
they
if
are.
you had submitted, your.
I think part of the joy was, for example, if an 8-year-old submitted, they could go and like walk up to it and see their own submission, which was really cool. In terms of like on private sites. I don't know if, I don't think that's something
I
that,
think
you
the
know,
person could take theirs after it was done being displayed, so maybe that's why we saw them on at some houses.
Got it.
You know, after the fact, maybe I'm not sure. I think I recall seeing those in some people's yards, but you're correct. It was in the kind of the public right of way along Solano Avenue.
Okay, I gotcha.
And, you know, if someone's interested in carrying that program forward, I'm sure Peter would happily provide advice and guidance and maybe some of his printing connections to help with the printing of a new set of poems as well. So.
And that would still be something that the Arts Committee would have to, you know, look at the funding and make that determination, you know, how you want to use the arts funds that are available.
Sure.
Okay, collaboration with the Economic Development Committee. So that is live. It's this year after the Economic Development Committee was sunsetted. So excited for that collaboration to continue. It is here in spirit.
I should also mention that we have a strong staff person who is doing economic development for the city. So even though the committee doesn't exist, I think there's there is a strong desire to use art as a means of attracting economic development in Albany. So even if the committee is not there, I think that is still a pathway forward for the committee to kind of think in terms of economic development of arts in Albany and how that is, you know, working together. And there's a staff person, Brendan Brown, who's doing a lot of that work these days.
Great.
Right. Next up, the gallery program, which we just talked about, so I think we can kind of continue on. The Albany Poet Laureate. So this is a program where I believe we basically choose a poet who's based or lives in Albany as the Poet Laureate. And I think they're given some stipend amount, which I forget what the exact amount might be. Let's say it might be like $1,000. And they become the Poet Laureate, and I think they have to do 1 to 2 events a year with Albany USD. Last year, when we did a call for the Poet Laureate and we looked at the applications and submissions, there was one that came in, but I think as a group we decided it just wasn't the right fit, or where this person was in their poetry career wasn't quite the standard that we were trying to keep or establish with the Poet Laureate program. So I think this, Albany's not a very big city, and so I think we run into what at work we'd call a total addressable market problem. There's not enough people. So really up to us if we'd like to continue that program.
How many years has it been before last year?
It's been for a while. I don't know if it came up as at the centennial when Albany turned 100, kind of around the first dinner with Albany, like back in the day. I'm not sure if there was a poet laureate before then, but at least for the last 10 plus years, there's been a poet laureate. But yeah, I think it's been, you know, a couple of the same people, if I
There's only 10 poets in all.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be crass or anything, but it's like, what's the purpose of a poet laureate?
Promoting poetry in Albany by having someone who can live here, who lives here and is, I guess, given a subsidy for that, and can engage in perhaps workshops with the students that go to school here.
I think there's another aspect of kind of storytelling, of time and place, kind of sense of being. I think that was the notion.
They actually had to do they had to do maybe a work
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I can't recall particularly to this program. It's not something that I was
Right.
close to, but maybe it's something that, yeah, Jeremy, if you're familiar, you can kind of brief us.
A little bit. I think there was a work commissioned to talk about Albany. I know that there have been a few poems that have been shared by the Poet Laureate. There's a program through the Albany Library. There were poetry nights where different readers would gather, and I think there was some affiliation between the Poet Laureate and the poetry program at the library, where, I mean, there was a community of poets who would come from Berkeley, Albany, Richmond, Oakland, and do readings throughout the Alameda County libraries. So there is some history, but, you know, a lot of things have changed since the pandemic, and whether or not the committee wants to bring this back, if it doesn't look like there's a market of poets here who are ready to go, then that could just be something that is either removed from the work plan and brought back later, or we can come back with more information about the history, at a later date. I don't have all the information, but I certainly can get it and report back.
Okay.
All right. Art in public places ordinance. So I think, part of one of the interesting things, and I think almost this intellectually interesting on the Arts Committee, is how is public art defined? Because the definition of public art then becomes the foundation for what we are able to fund as a committee. So as an example, let's say someone wanted to start an NFT non-fungible token sort of art program in Albany. Is that actually, can we define that as art? Because it's sort of a transient piece. These involve digital pieces, and I think that sort of what came up was if someone has, for example, a mural that is temporary, that they say, hey, I'm doing some very special art project, but it's going to disappear in sort of 6 months because of the materials that are used. Is that something that we can pursue as a committee? And I think that what we eventually decided is, instead of going back and forth with, let's say, city council, it almost made sense to kind of work through this definition of public art on a project by project basis. But I don't think there's anything there's no end goal here, but it just becomes this sort of open question for the committee and potentially the city as well to weigh in on the types of programs that we can and cannot pursue.
Mm-hmm. The more definition you have, the easier it is to make decisions. Yeah.
What is the definition?
Well, I'll have to go back. Like I said, I'm still getting caught up. I'll have to go review my municipal ordinances on art here in Albany, and then get back with you.
Citywide arts promotion. Okay, so if I recall correctly, this is a program not really a program, but something we just talked about on the committee is just how do we make art or the programs that we are working on more visible to the community? As an example, the Fall Into Haiku program. Yeah. A gift to the city, but if people don't see it, it's sort of a missed opportunity, right? So what are the different ways and the channels through which we can promote it? Getting an arts tab on the website, getting into the newsletter that goes out every Friday. There's some Instagram accounts that are great that are not run by the city, but making sure that they're also promoting it as well, at least reaching out to them about it. So just something for us to be, I guess, cognizant of with every project that we undertake. We were starting to look at website navigation options, and I don't know if we made any progress there, but something maybe for us to continue to work with Jeremy on.
Yeah.
Is there somebody that runs the whole website?
That's me.
Media?
Yeah.
That's you?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
Talking to the guy.
yeah, you're talking to the. So, yeah, there's a number of things, site-wide on the City of Albany website that need to address. It's an old website. It needs to be updated. And we're currently working with potential vendors to, within the next year and a half, to have a new website that will have more modern features to be able to show things in a contemporary manner. That said, there are a number of things that we can do currently. Now that I'm spending a little bit more time with the Arts Committee, it's a woefully underperforming section of the website. They could just, with some simple re-editing and revamping, we could do some better wayfinding and kind of clean it up to more clearly articulate what the vision is going forward. That may be something that you want to look at on the work plan too, with some specific kind of, all right, let's map this out and let's do something a little bit more clearly described what's going on. That also said, I'm the one who runs and does all the kind of the back-end technology for the city's social media sites, as well as the e-news and all of the notifications. So when you're ready to share information with the public, that's a very easy thing for me to do for you.
Turn the mic off because I have to use the restroom.
Okay.
Okay, and the last one is municipal art participants. Yeah, this is between an artist in residence or finding an intern. It's not something that we really explored, at least last year. And to be honest, we have to bring someone up on context, someone that have to manage them. Sometimes makes that a bit more challenging to pursue. But this is it in terms of programs.
Okay, well, great. Thank you, Harsh, for sharing that. That was certainly a lot more information than I would have been able to provide. So, as the committee begins to look at the next work plan, here's the kind of the history, where things stand, where the committee's at right now. Obviously, having this, the committee wasn't able to meet, since January because all the positions weren't appointed. That's why we decided to move forward, even though there's only 4 of you right now. Hopefully, there'll be a 5th and potentially 2 more. So we're, if the school district is able to, or the city council is able to find the appropriate applicants from the school district to be able to join, then theoretically there'll be 7 people, and you can spread out this work amongst 7 people. So what needs to happen tonight is there's probably 2 subcommittees that we would likely create tonight, one for the gallery manager, and that could be one person, but it also could be a subcommittee. Also, I'm thinking that the mural, making the mural subcommittee official, because the 2 of you have already been working on that, we can take up to 3 people. That likely that would be where we would start so that we can move forward on both of those. And then if there's, that would probably be the minimum that we need to do. Of course, if the committee is interested in discussing, really wants to, there's something that's, something that the committee feels strongly that we need to move on now, and there's a desire for another subcommittee to start work, say, for example, fall into haiku, maybe there's somebody who really wants to take that on, then the committee could create that subcommittee and get started now. Subcommittees are no more for an advisory body of 7. Subcommittee can be no more than 3 people to do that work. That's kind of the conditions of the Brown Act. Was everybody able to attend the Brown Act training or at least see the videos? Okay. So those would be the things that you'd be able to do, communicate with each other on the subcommittee about a particular topic, or communicate with me if any information needs to be shared to the rest of the committee. That would happen during the course of an agendized public meeting. So with that, we've had a fair amount of. Are there any questions at this point about the public art master plan programs or any of that?
One thing that might be helpful to look at, and we could also maybe do this in our own time too, is just the budget that was set aside for the 2021 to 2023.
I made notes
Yeah.
about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the budget is going to council at the next meeting, and I think Isabel will have some numbers to present at the June meeting for what the committee will be able to work through. I still need to talk with Jeff Bond in Community Development. The funding for arts programs comes through, if I understand it correctly, developments. usually construction projects here in the city of Albany. Some of the larger projects they can either contribute a certain percentage of their project to the City of Albany's Art Fund or invest that money in their own locally sourced and installed artwork and manage that themselves. A lot of the developers choose to do that on large projects so that they would have control of the artwork that is installed in their space. You can see an example at the senior housing facility right here on San Pablo Avenue. There's that's the silver sculpture in the front, that, for example. So we'll have to. So there's not a lot of funds coming in right now. So there's a limited amount of money that's left in the fund. I think it's somewhere in the realm of $180,000, $200,000, something like that, as last I remember. But I'll have to get those numbers to confirm what the actual is. But the city's working on the budget for the next budgetary cycle at the next council meeting on, what is it, May 15th, I think is what it is. So they'll be discussing the budget, and then I should be able to get that information by the June meeting for what the actual amount is that the committee will have to work with. And, you know, help deciding, okay, 25% for this, 50% for this, all of it for this, none of it for this. That'll be what the committee will be discussing.
Yeah, I had one question there, which is, it might be helpful for all of us to also understand just how quickly does that get replenished, right? And so I know that it
kind of fits and starts. I think it's big chunks and then nothing. And I'm not sure that the city has any mechanism or is discussing alternate means of funding the arts in Albany, but that certainly could be something that the committee discusses. You know, are there other ways in addition to that to have some type of perpetual funding for arts that's a little bit more sustainable?
So what could be helpful to know is what have the inflows into that fund as it exists today looked like over the last decade? Has that 200,000 come in, you know, in the past 3 years, or has it taken 15 years to kind of build up? Right. And then on the other side of this, I recommend as a committee for potentially each of us to review ahead of potentially the next meeting is, you know, what were we looking at spending on in the 2021 to 2023 budget? For example, I think we had set aside about $20,000 for public murals in Albany, but, you know, truth be told, I don't think things really got moving on that until just after I joined the committee, so middle of last year. So that's something that, you know, Deirdre and I would want to carry on and supplement based on some of the cost projections we have for murals.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Isabel mentioned. Isabel and I met with Deirdre and with Harsh specifically about murals a couple of weeks ago, and some of the funds that so there may be funds in the budget, but they're encumbered because they're scheduled to be spent on whatever the next next expense is. Even though the money hasn't actually transferred out, it's still there, but it's earmarked for a certain thing.
And I think an example of that is the social justice project, which has $30,000 earmarked for it, which has not been spent yet, but it has been earmarked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so the city council will designate a certain amount from the arts fund, and then within that,
I think what it is, there's a certain amount of money in the arts fund, and the committee will make a recommendation to council for how that money should be allocated going forward. So it's all kind of happening at the same time. In an ideal world, all of these discussions would have happened over these last few months so that when council goes to discuss the budget and decide, because ultimately the city council will make the decision for how the money is going to be spent. The arts committee will make the recommendation to council, and these are the priorities that the committee sees as the most valuable, the most, the most relevant, however you want to kind of look at that. And so I would say, even though the city council is going to be looking at the budget, there is still time for the Arts Committee to weigh in and hopefully give some priority to some aspects of what's going to happen over these next 2 years, even though this is a very short window or a very abbreviated window to be able to look at everything, get up to speed, understand the full scope of what the Arts Committee is going to do, and then make some decisions about priorities. Any other questions before I move to public comment?
Yeah, so what's the timeline again for the council setting the budget?
Well, that's happening right now. There's a city council meeting at the May 15th. We'll be looking specifically at the budget. I think the budget will be adopted for the fiscal year 23-24, which starts July 1, so it's happening now. I would imagine that Isabel will have some more information for you at your June meeting, specific to anything that needs to happen at that meeting that would need to be done before the city council finalizes the budget. That's my understanding. Any other questions? All right, so I'll move to public comment. Don't see anybody here in the room, and there are no virtual attendees, so we'll bring it back to the committee for discussion and action. We'll probably be looking to create the gallery manager subcommittee and the mural subcommittee. And it'll be up for the committee to discuss this and make a motion and then vote on creating those subcommittees. Harsh and Deirdre have been working, together on the mural program already. That seems to be the likely starting point for that particular subcommittee, so they can move forward with their work that they've been doing so far. But subcommittees can have up to 3 people. Right now, there's only 4 of you. So I would suggest, maybe starting with those 2. But if there is something else that in there that you would like to get started working on right away that, that's already kind of part of the work plan, or you anticipate being part of the work plan for this session, have that discussion, and then we can make those subcommittees.
I'm totally fine with letting these guys continue with what they've been doing.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, me too. Can you scroll up though to the organization of that section? Okay, so, oh wait.
Keep going.
No, down to where the,
Community projects?
yeah. Okay. So I guess, does all the other ideas for the community projects fall under the mural program, like the BART pillars and stuff?
The
or-
BART pillars were part of the mural program, yeah.
I mean, when they wrote this, I don't think it necessarily was. It just turned out that way.
Oh, okay. So maybe that'll, when the committee looks at updating the work plan, that language can be clarified.
Yeah, I think we'll be consolidating it
Yeah,
because
for
we were
sure.
presenting it such to the Arts Committee at the end of last year as part of the murals.
And I would be happy to throw myself into helping with your committee. I don't want to be a third wheel or anything, but just,
Yeah, and of course, like any of the work that we do, Deirdre and I are just making recommendations to the Arts Committee for review and approval to the committee.
Essentially, you're doing all the legwork outside, doing the fact-finding, getting the information, meeting, emailing with all the people, then bringing that back to the committee, and then the committee will.
Discussion.
Yeah,
well, hell, you guys do all that. Jeez. But yeah, if I'm open, if you need any help or.
and there's likely going to be other subcommittees that will need to be created
Right.
along the way, and other people can join. If it looks like there's more work that needs to be done, you need to share the load. Other members can join into a subcommittee, so long as it doesn't surpass the total number of 3.
Doesn't look like it's going to, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sit out for this.
It sounds like, yeah, the gallery manager is the other one.
Yeah, the gallery manager is the other. And that can be up to 3 members. It really only needs to be 1 gallery manager, but like, I said, it's a fair amount of work that, in the past, it's been a subcommittee with at least 2 people who would, go back and forth, share the load, or if somebody was not able to attend a gallery opening, then the other person could attend in their place. But the entire Arts Committee is welcome to attend any of the gallery openings if you'd like to, since they are public events. You just have to refrain from talking about Arts Committee business while they're in place.
Does anybody have, because I saw one of the responsibilities is to verify the art of in some way, and so.
So verification, does the person actually exist? Do they have a studio? Do they have a website? Do they actually have the artwork that they would like to display in their possession? So I think that would be the extent of verification. It would be up to the committee to kind of determine if there's any more stringent requirements that are necessary. But I think at this point, with what we're doing, it would be that, having those initial communications with the artist, maybe visiting their studio space if that exists, if that's relevant or appropriate. I mean, if their studio is in their house, maybe not, but at least kind of doing that coordination by email, phone, text, or meeting in person to talk about art. I think that would be the kind of as I understand it, the work required for that verification process.
I have a little bit of an issue about verifying their studio space.
I don't know if that's indeed a requirement or not.
Okay, because that, I've known people who work out of the garage, out of, their foyer, whatever.
If I understand correctly from what was briefed to me about that, is that do they have the artwork and will they be able to provide that?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So I think I already tossed my hat into that ring, but I'm happy to share it. I don't need to be the sole, I probably don't want to be the sole person to verify all that, but I'm happy to jump in and look at all that stuff.
Yeah, it seems like you have a good background for it. I would be happy to, if you can't make some of the dates for some of the showings, to fill in for you. So,
Okay.
yeah, I can serve as the backup for that, or another person on that committee.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we have a good starting point for 2. If anybody would like to make we can start with, maybe start with the mural project. And if somebody would like to make a motion to create a mural subcommittee.
I move to create a mural.
And then list the people who would be on the mural subcommittee.
Yep. So I vote to create a mural subcommittee with at least to start with myself and with Member Shaw and Member Green.
And is there a second?
I second.
Okay. So the motion is to create a mural subcommittee with Member Shaw and Member Green. Member Carlton? Aye. Member Chen?
Aye.
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Shaw? Okay. Official subcommittee created. Do we have another motion for gallery manager?
I move that we create a subcommittee with Brad and Emily.
Okay. All right. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay. Member Carlton?
Aye.
Member Chen?
Aye.
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Shaw?
Yes.
Okay. Very efficient committee here tonight.
I told you.
Very good. All right. So Nick, so good job. We've got through all of the content for tonight's meeting. Future agenda items. Is there anything specific that the committee would like to discuss at the next meeting that you would like to have added to the agenda?
Yeah, I think Deirdre and I can provide an update on some of the work we've been doing on murals,
Okay.
and love to get some say get the team's thoughts, but get the committee's thoughts.
So yeah, we'll do that. We'll have two subcommittee updates, likely at the next meeting for sure, so that there will be time to do that. I'll put on for the gallery manager as well.
Okay, so, and then I imagine like the gallery update would be going over the three applications.
I think we'll probably work offline over this next month between Joy, Brad, and Emily. I'll just copy you on those things, and if you want to, so we'll work on that, and then that will be determined how it's brought back to the committee at the June meeting. It may just be all good to go, and let the committee know what the decisions are. Or it will come back to the committee, and the committee will say, yes, this one for September, this one for July, this one for October, and then this one for 2024. I'm not exactly sure how that will go, but it will be something like that.
So in that vein, do you want, for the next meeting, for us to actually have contacted these artists?
Yes,
and
that will need to
all that
happen.
work that.
Correct. That will need to happen between now and the next meeting. And Joy and I will follow up and help you with the specifics and provide all the contact information and exactly how, and maybe the two of you divide those contacts up. I'm not sure. We'll figure that out.
Okay, and will they be looped in?
Not until the meeting. It'll only be with the subcommittee. Yeah.
You guys are out of the loop.
Yeah.
Do we have each other's emails?
So one of the things that you need to, because of the Brown Act, direct communication is a challenging potentiality. Of course, you can share your personal information with each other, but there is a very strong likelihood that if you start communicating with each other by phone, text, and email, there is the potential for violating the Brown Act. Mm-hmm. And so any committee business that you are working on that involves the entire committee should be done in an open public forum. That said, for your subcommittee members, I would suggest, if you want to communicate directly with your subcommittee, that's fine. So sharing phone numbers, sharing emails is perfectly appropriate as you do your subcommittee work.
Okay. So, and Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, with the Brown Act, you can email up to, or you can reach out to, in whatever mechanism, up to 2 other members of the overall arts committee. I think it's no more than 3 members
Correct.
of the arts
and
committee.
that would be in most circumstances in context with you meeting as a subcommittee, not more than 3 people in that subcommittee. If I am not the Brown Act expert, I can certainly bring Ann Sue in to share that information and for how you can communicate with the committee. But the best way, if you have something that needs to be shared with the committee, either bring it up in announcements during the course of a public meeting, or send it to me so that I can distribute to the entire committee and be able to let the public know. Really what we're trying to avoid is things being decided outside of a public forum, so that everybody from the public is able to fully understand and see what's happening with the committee in the course of a public meeting.
And I think that's what we did last year as well. So I think we reached out to our city liaison, who was able to
Exactly.
distribute it to the entire group. But
Yeah, so if there's any updates, announcements, or things that are important to the entire committee outside of what's happening at the meeting, I'm more than happy to share that.
Okay, so is the timeline correct that basically Brad and I will decide on the order of or?
Probably, so you recommend, and I think it would also have to do with the unknown variable, can the artist do at a particular time? So I think that decision would likely have to do with the artist's availability. Maybe maybe there's one that's more available the first part and one that's better the second part. So it'll be kind of up to you to have those conversations amongst yourselves, and then report back. And if you have any questions, you can talk with either Joy or myself, and we can help you determine what the best course of action is. Whether or not it needs to come back to the committee for the committee to decide and make that decision together. And that's something that could happen at the June meeting if the timeline works, or it's something that you as gallery managers are empowered to make that decision.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, because we all moved forward on
Yeah,
those three.
all three, so I think it's going to be fine.
So I feel like Joy is the person to talk to as far as the actual gallery space.
That's
and
correct, yeah.
Whatnot,
Yeah.
specifics.
The specific, and I'm here to support, so probably the best way with these types of communications, so that everybody's kind of looped in, any conversations that have to do with the logistics in the space, you're talking with Joy, just CC me. I mean, I may not need to respond or anything, but it'd be just good for me to know. And if I'm communicating with you about the artists and logistics, I'll CC Joy as well, so that we're all kind of working together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Any other future agenda items?
The time of this meeting? I know you had some information for me.
Yeah, so one of the things that there was a request in some of the conversations I had with Brad is looking at the time of the city meeting. One of the reasons why all of the city committees meet at 7 PM is to accommodate both staff and the public at the end of the day, so that people who are working will be able to go home, do something, and then come back to a meeting. That's one of the main reasons. Also, there are some schedule limitations as we get earlier in the day. In a city facility, this room is used during the day. So being able to set up in advance of, say, a 5 o'clock or a 6 o'clock meeting. There are a couple of committees that had met at different times before. Economic development was one, but that was in order to accommodate business owners who were part of the committee who wanted to attend who didn't live in Albany. So the thought being, if they were done the end of the workday, they could participate in the economic development meeting. Community media access met at 6 PM, but that was only kind of out of legacy because they met in this room when Charter Review had a regular meeting at 7 PM on Mondays, and we had to be out before 7 o'clock. So we had a hard stop. But at this point, all public meetings are at 7 o'clock as a matter of consistency. And
I was going to say that was a very gracious way of saying, no, it's
Yeah.
going to stay at 7 o'clock.
Likely. I mean, the committee certainly can discuss it, but ultimately, it would be the city council and the city clerk who would determine. It's also always been 7 o'clock for Arts Committee, so.
I don't work anymore, so I have a lot of time on my hands, so it's all good.
But thank you, yeah. Anything else for future agenda items? Okay, well, then the next meeting, regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 12th. Hopefully, we'll have some more members who are appointed. If you know anybody who you think would be appropriate, there's one more council member appointee, and then 2 appointees that are AUSD affiliates, like a high school student and/or somebody who's affiliated with the school district. So if you know of anybody who is interested, who might be a good fit, please, we're still taking applications, and, if you just want to have a, arts committee buddy who from around town to show up and
They have to be residents of
residents of
Albany.
Albany.
Right, okay, yeah. I've tried twice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you just tell them how much fun it is and what an enjoyable group of people are on this committee, so. With that, I think, Chair, I'm sorry, I'm just naturally running the meeting. I'll leave it to you to adjourn the meeting at this specific time.
All right, I guess then I would accept a motion to adjourn.
We don't need a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
just
then
go
I
ahead.
will just adjourn the meeting.
All right, well,
Right.
thank you, everybody.
Yeah.